Well, hi everyone, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Michael O'Connell, and I'm head of marketing here at AnyRoad. I'm pleased to share with you the findings of our first annual Experiential Trends Report. So this is an annual report looking at trends in the experience economy, specifically looking at experiential marketing, events, and retail services. Before I kick off, I'm just going to make sure everyone in the room is okay. I have one raised hands from retailer. Rhea, if there's any questions you have, you can pop them into the questions board. Here's some instructions for you. We're recording this session, so we're going to be sending the link to you within 24 hours. You can configure your audio settings here. Please make sure you ask some questions as we go along. And if you do want to tweet and reference AnyRoad, we'd be very grateful. So without much further ado, as I said, my name is Michael O'Connell. I'm head of marketing here at AnyRoad, and I'm delighted to host you today. So what we're going to be covering is insights from our first Experiential Trends Report. That includes operational insights from our Experience Manager product, which includes engagement numbers, types of experiences, and geographic trends. Also going to be covered here is sentiment and behaviors surfaced through the AnyRoad Atlas product. So that's our experiential data platform that offers kind of feedback. So we pick up real consumer sentiment at scale this way. And then finally, I want to make sure we're offering some practical tips and advice to take action from these insights. So for those that are less familiar with AnyRoad, I want to just give you a quick sense of who we are and what we do. We were founded in 2013, and we're an experiential data platform that allows brands to scale and optimize their customer experiences, and specifically those that really drive long-term behavior change. So companies like Budweiser, Honda, Michaels, Tabasco, they all count on AnyRoad for anything from in-store appointments and services to activations, tours, and classes. So let's jump into the content, shall we? And our exec summary. So, there's a couple of things that we're seeing in the data. I'm just trying to pull out the most salient points here. The top one is that reopening is accelerating, and in-person experiences are booming again. And so the first time in over a year, in-person experience attendance outpaced virtual events, and 68% of the experiences that we saw in May 2021 were in person, up from 4%. That's not a mistake. 4% of the experiences that we saw executed and run in May 2020 were in person. Consumers are also booking ahead and spending more per visit. So let's think about this as a little bit more pent-up demand and excitement. So the average booking window that we're seeing for our experiences for our customers has increased from 11 to 15 days. And that spend per visit has actually increased by 4.5x year to date as more activities open up. Online experiences, they're now mainstream, and that's despite a bunch of Zoom fatigue that's been going on. We'll see it. We'll talk in more detail about that, but it's definitely a mainstream way, and also a very, very effective way for you to increase geographic reach. And so one brand that we analyzed was able to increase its audience size by over 60% by adding online experience to its portfolio. Another thing on online experiences is that they have a similar impact on brand perception as in-person experiences. So post-experience net promoter score, or NPS, for online is 80, and in-person it's 82. And so that delta has actually narrowed over the course of the past year. And so we'll go into what NPS is, and if you're not familiar with that measurement, and why that's important for your brand. But for me, it's also just more evidence that online is now mainstream, and online's here to stay. But it's going to be part of that marketing mix, or that experiential mix that we offer our customers. So next up, we had a couple of questions about where this data came from. So the Experiential Trends Report is based on aggregated data from more than 400 AnyRoad customers and brands that use AnyRoad to power their branded experiences. So as I mentioned, Budweiser, Honda, Michaels, and Tabasco, they're some of our partners and customers. So the report leans a lot on data and includes both behavioral and operational insights from our platform. So behavioral and sentiment insights kind of include stuff like NPS surveys, open text feedback, which we can analyze at scale using NLP, which is natural language processing. It's a type of machine learning. And then there's operational analytics, which is kind of volume-based metrics, which really just show you some of the trends in behavior and how some of our partners are doing. Let's touch on some definitions, which are actually quite important. You know, given the volume of jargon and acronyms I'm going to be throwing at you today, I want to make sure that we level set to make sure we're all on the same page in terms of what we mean by some of the terms we're using. So first up is our branded experiences. So at AnyRoad, we use the term experiences to cover a wide variety of events, activations, and indeed services that brands offer. So we believe experiences are typically that they need to be multisensory. So they need to trigger at least 3 of our senses. So examples could include Diageo offering distillery tours for some of their brands, Dick's Sporting Goods offering in-store services like golf club fitting, Budweiser offering online beer tastings, Tabasco offering factory tours, Nestle offering in-store samples for their latest product. And finally, brands like Miller Coors doing field activations such as live concerts and events. So the bottom line here is that, like, you know, these experiences actually allow consumers to spend time with your brand. And so the more time they spend with your brand, the more money effectively they're going to spend on your offerings. So if you're in the experience industry, I'll recommend that you get a book which is not referenced here. It's called The Experience Economy. It's a lot of the inspiration for the angles that we take and the point of view that we take on what experiences are. So next up is Net Promoter Score, NPS. You'll see this referenced a couple of times in our presentation. It's not a new concept, but it's something that we use heavily in terms of understanding, you know, the impact or on behaviors and brand sentiment of the experiences that we do and that we support. So NPS is an index ranging anywhere from -100 to 100 that measures the willingness of customers to recommend a company's products or services to others. So it's used for gauging customers' overall satisfaction with products and services, and indeed their loyalty to a brand. So just think, you'll see this. You probably saw it in our kind of registration sign-up process for this webinar. If you're a customer, you're probably of AnyRoad, you're seeing this data every day, and it's a very, very valuable kind of leading indicator and yardstick of how impactful your experiences are. And so then we take that NPS and we actually can use it to calculate a metric we call brand conversion. So again, another valuable leading indicator of the impact of experiences. And so this is quite popular amongst AnyRoad customers. But what it does is it measures how effective your experiences are in turning visitors or people that engage with your brand into brand advocates. So we have the same survey question before and after an experience, and indeed we can actually issue it a couple of months later to re-poll folks. And so it's often correlated with the post-experience Net Promoter Score, but it gives a more specific result or indication of that lift in sentiment. So if somebody who participated in one of your experiences was kind of a passive, but after the experience they become a promoter, we call that a positive brand conversion. And there's a couple of examples here in terms of how that's calculated. If you'd like to know more, we've got a whole webinar on this. It's called how to create brand champions with experiences, and I'd be happy to follow that up in an email afterwards. Another thing that you'll see talked about here is the differences, I suppose, between paid experiences and free experiences. A lot of the experiences offered by AnyRoad customers are indeed paid. And so in addition to direct revenue, these paid appointments, services, and experiences create valuable data and insights that can be used to increase the average spend per visit and ultimately a lifetime value of visitors and shoppers. So the experiences these paid experiences can fall into 2 categories. We do offer a lot of free experiences as well, or our customers do rather, but that could be events, tours, and classes. So stuff like in-store events or in-store classes rather. And then another side is services and appointments. So if we're offering, you know, golf club fitting or a personal styling service at a store that's bookable through our platform, those are paid. So when we start talking about kind of spend per visit, we're referring to these kind of paid experiences for the most part. All right. So in terms of operational insights, these are kind of insights focused on volume-based metrics. And so I'll jump right in here and we'll start with some of the more important ones. So reopening is definitely accelerating. And so this data actually was pulled on May 31st, and it said that 75% of AnyRoad customers had reopened at that point for in-person experiences. And so what we're seeing is by the end of July, so just over in a couple of days, we expect probably 95% of our customers to have fully reopened. Some brands are affected by national shutdowns and lockdowns, as we have a geographic footprint around the world. If you look at our brands in North America, I would say we're already kind of at close to 100% there. And this is kind of, I suppose, related a lot to consumer confidence, but also the kind of amount of new types of experiences that we've seen become available during the pandemic that have a little bit of a safety motion to them. A lot of private experiences, hybrid experiences are happening as well. So our takeaway from this is, brands that are open today they're taking advantage of this lift in demand for in-person experiences. So they're getting more engagement, data, and insights. And those that offer paid experiences are actually also seeing meaningful revenue growth from them. So we'd recommend that if you're not open now, make sure you have a roadmap and a plan to get back open, and that you're covering those kind of contingencies and those things that you need to do to make sure that you can open quickly. The other thing is that consumers are switching back to in-person experiences over virtual. And so while online and virtual experiences are still popular with consumers, we're seeing a strong shift in preference towards in-person experiences. So this is being driven, I suppose, mostly by a combination of more in-person offerings becoming available, but also to a certain extent, Zoom fatigue. And we'll touch on that a little bit later in our behaviors section. So for example, in May 2020, 9 in 10 consumers that engaged with AnyRoad partners attended online experiences. So by May 2021, just 3 out of 10 bookings were attending online. So that's a dramatic shift away from online experiences. But if you look at the volumes of bookings that we're seeing, it means it's a small delta in terms of online. Online's fairly stable, but the proportion of bookings that we're seeing is heavily skewing towards in-person. So our takeaway here is to continue to provide both online and in-person options for consumers, but to prioritize in-person in order to maximize consumer engagement and to take advantage of that volume-based trend that we're seeing there. So when we talk about in-person experiences accelerating, they're not just accelerating, they are booming. So we're seeing kind of this velocity of change dramatically increase and shift up and to the right. And so if you look at this chart here, it tracks kind of booking volume month over month from May 2020 through to May 21. And what we saw is, due to the availability of online experiences, that volume-based number peaked in July 2020. But it started to fall off in terms of, and has been overtaken as of May 21 in terms of the in-person booking experience. So while today, the pandemic caused many consumers to shift preferences and change behaviors, today brands have an opportunity to regain loyal customers, but they got to move fast. So there's this demand there for in-person experiences. If your brand offered them previously in the past, there's a sense of urgency to make sure that you're capturing this kind of wave of demand, and you can take advantage of that opportunity to engage loyal fans and customers. So I'll touch on experiences. You're going to get this kind of sense from me here that, in-person and online are both super important ways to engage consumers. And I want to encourage brands to make sure that they're offering both if it works for your business. But what we're seeing is brands are beginning to see higher volumes of attendees at in-person experiences, but global travel still somewhat suppressed. And talks of Delta variants and that kind of stuff. The best way to increase geographic reach remains to be online experiences. And so this heat map shows the dramatic distribution of North America experience attendees clustered around major urban centers for in-person and more distributed for online. So if you want to increase that geographic reach, attack or engage regions where you may not have a physical location, or you may not have a brand ambassador that's working in that region. Online is a great way to get more coverage there. And so to put this graphic in perspective, we had one AnyRoad customer that increased their audience size by over 60% by adding online experiences to their portfolio. And that volume is sustaining through the pandemic, or sorry, through post-pandemic rather. So my takeaway from this one is that if national or global reach are important to your brand, or if audience expansion is a priority, keep going with online experiences. You won't regret it. So we're pacing quite fast ahead here. I imagine we'll probably have another 15 minutes left in this talk, so we've got to cover a lot of ground in this one. But let's look at the behaviors and sentiment that we're seeing as kind of a new post-COVID consumer, as we like to call them, is emerging. So this is a consumer that is comfortable with the safety limitations of the new post-COVID world. There's a sense of anxiety around things like the Delta variant, but for the most part, the desire to meet up in person is trumping a lot of those concerns. And so people are looking to brands to kind of lead the way in terms of reopening. And so we have a societal role to play in terms of helping our customers and helping our consumers get their lives back to normal in a safe way. So we'll start with online experiences now having kind of a similar impact on brand perception as in-person experiences. So what we see is that the post-experience NPS for online and virtual experiences is 80. And that's actually increased from the start of the pandemic, where we saw kind of a wider delta between in-person and online. For the most part, at the start of the pandemic, people were kind of getting used to in-person or online experiences. It was a new medium. So the quality of some of the experiences wasn't great because the production values were low. A lot of brands were new to running them. In fact, 60% of the brands that we surveyed during the pandemic it was the first time they had run an online experience. So now that rhythm is, I suppose, bedded down and brands are more comfortable delivering these types of experiences, we're seeing the quality increase and folks self-select that they have a desire to attend online experiences, and they may indeed prefer that medium. And so I think it's important that the quality definitely continues to increase, and then that you understand the cohorts of your consumers that want to engage with online experiences over in person. So identify those consumers and engage them with the experiences that will build loyalty. So quite remarkable kind of the journey that when people went on, we saw kind of fairly solid NPS scores post experience for online, but it's kind of crept up into the right. And the kind of novelty there factor of these things has subsided, and they've now become more mainstream. So one of the things we're also seeing is that consumers are booking ahead, and so the booking of experiences is kind of an average of 14 days in advance versus 9 days in 2020 and 11 days in 2019. So people are excited. They're making plans further ahead. They're all these kind of experiences and activities that they put off for a year has kind of created a lot of pent-up demand. So it's also a strong indicator of consumer confidence, as more and more consumers are taking intentional steps to plan the rest of their summer. And indeed, if you do offer these experiences bookable through the end of the year, those are getting booked too. So what I'd say is the takeaway here is provide options for consumers to plan ahead and to engage with your brand. This holds true even for brands that are delaying reopening. So if you're not open today, make sure that you have a date in the future where you plan to reopen, and provide consumers an opportunity to book. We've heard from some of our customers. One of the challenges with reopening has been staffing, and so if you have staffing issues in terms of staffing these types of experiences, you should be able to bed those down, over the next couple of weeks and months. And so maybe make these bookable experiences available when you have a higher degree of confidence that you'll have the staff levels to support them. So We talked about paid versus free experiences. For paid experiences, consumers are spending more as restrictions are lifted, and this is through a combination of larger group bookings, a better selection of experiences. Brands had an opportunity to be creative, to develop new types of premium experiences, but also offer more upsells. So this is another strong indication of pent-up consumer demand and a desire to connect in person. So our takeaway and what we'd say here is it's kind of a remarkable increase in consumer spend for these types of experiences. So our recommendation is to offer more experience type that can appeal to more consumers. So, if you're a brand home, offer private premium group experiences. These are a stepping stone for more COVID anxious consumers, and also offer the opportunity to charge a premium for privacy. The other thing to think about is making sure that you have opportunities to upsell consumers and make sure that they have these kind of premium options available. So post-COVID, consumers are also 10 to 15% more likely to upgrade or personalize their experiences. So this increase in guests' willingness to buy upgrades and add-ons is very, very encouraging for brands. It also indicates that, again, this kind of pent-up demand and desire for kind of premium experiences after putting off things for over a year. So say you offer a distillery tour, ensure that you have upgrades available, such as kind of personalized bottles in your checkout process, or special edition bottles that may result in 10 to 15% lift in spend per visit. And so I would say to maximize revenue from your paid experiences, make sure that you identify opportunities for upgrades. Again, I don't think you're going to regret that time spent in developing those experiences. Not only does it result in a higher post-experience NPS, it also results in more revenue for the brand. So Zoom fatigue is unfortunately real. We experience it ourselves when we run webinars. We're seeing very, very similar fallout rates in terms of folks that register and then actually attend our webinars. So attendance rates are dropping dramatically for online experiences. So just 33% of registrants are actually showing up to the experiences they booked. So this is true for paid experiences too, which is actually remarkable. So if you paid for an online tasting, we're seeing show rates being as low as 33% for those, which is very disappointing. But it's also just a sign of the times and indeed that kind of just malaise or fatigue around Zoom. So best-in-class show rates are around 65%. And a common theme for those types of experiences is the quality of the content. And another important factor in the show rates is the audience is targeted. So making sure that experiences target existing brand champions and net promoters, they often have the highest show rate. So let's say you're launching a new product, such as a new car or a new model of phone. If you target your net promoters or your brand champions, they're more likely to attend that experience, but they're also more likely to talk about it and amplify that out in the market. So you get that kind of network effect from that experience. So again, this is nuanced in terms of the type of experience that you're running, but the more targeted, the more personalized that content is, typically you see a higher show rate. And so our takeaway here is that brands that offer compelling, unique content can double attendance rates for online experiences through kind of personalization and really good targeting of the marketing efforts on those. So what we're also seeing is that feedback and commentary about COVID safety peaked in March 2020 and subsided slowly afterwards, but has started to increase as reopening accelerates. And in fact, I didn't quite get the chart done for this, but we're seeing it actually increase again as people kind of ask questions about Delta variants and all this kind of stuff. I think the important thing is that you have a very, very transparent safety policy. You make sure that the communication is very clear. And you want to avoid any kind of negative comments around safety in your sentiment. So the chart on the right shows the NPS for two groups of customers. The first received a high volume of positive comments about safety, while the second received a high volume of negative comments about safety. And that's a significant difference in NPS post-experience. And so obviously you want to be in the group A bucket. versus the group B bucket, and that's around just having clear safety policies, making sure your customers and your visitors feel safe and supported. And so our takeaway here is to make sure you're clear and concise about the COVID safety measures that you're taking, and so consumers can interact with your brand and indeed become net promoters and brand champions. So we've flown through that content. I think that's the advantage of these kind of survey reports. So that'll give us some more time for questions, and it also means that you have a little bit of time back in your day. But I'll just run through our kind of takeaways from that content. I think just to make sure this is super actionable for you and valuable for you to take to your day-to-day job. So the first thing that we say is reopen and do it quickly. So brands that are open today are getting more engagement, more data, and more insights. And so those that offer paid experiences and services are also seeing meaningful revenue growth. The other takeaway is upsell and offer premium products. If you're not offering premium experiences and private experiences, start experimenting with those today. As also when it comes to paid experiences and services, consumers are happy to spend more on premium experiences. Private experiences offer that kind of safe entry point for the kind of COVID conservative folks who want to start in person but don't want to kind of do these bigger, larger experiences. And ensure your paid experiences and services offer opportunities to upsell. It doesn't look like it, but I booked a haircut the other day, and when I booked the haircut through the booking system, it offered me an opportunity to do custom razor writing on the side of my head. No, it didn't take advantage of that, but again, I would say that's an extra $10 on the booking. And I wouldn't be surprised if some folks have decided to do that for the summer that's in it. So upgrades, premium experiences, super important. The other thing that we would say is making an impact online is becoming more important than ever. Because online experiences are mainstream and the data shows that they're here to stay. With attendance rates so low, it's worth making sure that you're investing in the content and the production here to make those experiences more impactful and make sure that they continue to have that kind of really strong post-experience NPS, and that not only are they increasing your geographic reach, but they're also increasing the volume of brand champions that you can create. And the final takeaway is having clear safety guidelines. So COVID anxiety is beginning to fall, but brands must play a role in educating consumers about safety protocols and indeed vaccination benefits. It'll directly impact brand perception and NPS, and it'll make sure that your experiences indeed have more impact. So that is the end of the presentation. I'll be stopping here now for some questions. I'm just going to pause my share and make sure I can open up to see all the questions that are coming through. We have a couple here. One is from Andrea, and so it is, how has experiential kind of been involved? So I would say that the evolution of experiential, the major shift that I think that I've seen would be the fact that online has become mainstream. And so traditionally, when we thought about virtual experiences and virtual events, that was kind of limited to these kind of online conferences and trade shows, which were kind of a little bit kind of unique and niche. Now, because they're mainstream, we saw a lot of innovation on things like Instagram Live, Zoom, and the types of mediums and the types of production values that are appealing to consumers are lower. So I think that is probably the main thing that I think that we've seen over the last year. I would also say that the demand and the interest from brands in running experience is also increasing, and I think there's other factors playing into that. I think yes, brands want to take part in this great reopening, but the other thing that we're seeing from customers, which is not tracked in this research, is this desire to enable a value exchange with consumers so that you can deliver a meaningful experience to them, and in exchange they give you their personal data. And that's going to be so more important for brands as GDPR, CCPA, these types of privacy restrictions kind of come in over the next couple of years. I've also got a question here from Bill. do you think any of the major brands regret postponing their large B2C experiential programs through the end of this year? I would say that yes. I think some of them are actually going to revisit that, and actually we're seeing them revisit them. So let's say that I'm a large kind of consumer electronics company, and I plan to have a kind of large user conference or a consumer event in person. I may have postponed that, but instead of that, in lieu of that, I'll probably scale back the size and then go from one large experience or conference to multiple smaller experiences. And indeed, we're seeing actually a big resurgence in the investment in experiential retail. So that's kind of static stores that are going to be persistent, but also kind of pop-up experiences have become more popular amongst consumer brands. So I would say yes, Bill, definitely seeing some regret there, but I'm seeing those dollars pivot into more experimental concepts as well. From Anthony, I missed the beginning 10 minutes. Is there a replay? Yes, we'll get you a recording of this one probably tomorrow. You'll get it first thing tomorrow once we kind of got it processed and uploaded. We did fly through the content, so I'm sorry that you missed so much in the first 10 minutes. So Michael is also said, thanks for sharing the content. I was late. Did you cover what percentage of your response are fully vaccinated, partially or not? We actually don't collect that information from our consumers. But what we do see is that when it comes to vaccination and safety, there is a close correlation between experience NPS and how clearly communicated COVID safety protocols are. So specifically, what we saw is when we collect open text feedback after experiences, we see a lot of negative comments around safety linked to a negative NPS score. Now, that's not surprising, but we'll also see a close correlation between really pleased with the safety protocols. There was hand sanitizer. The experience offered free masks. Or they didn't challenge me on the masks. There's a bunch of stuff there around making sure clear and concise safety protocols are in place. All right, I'm going to, that's all the questions that have come through so far. Don't be shy. If there's anything that you want to ask, throw a question in there and I can get back to you as soon as possible. The other thing is here, we've got the email address on there. That actually is an alias that also includes me. So it's experiences@anyroad.com. If you do have a question and you didn't think of it live today, you can actually just ping me directly and I'll be happy to answer your question via email. So, okay, Anthony, you were explaining who AnyRoad are. So thank you for that question. You're giving me an opportunity to pitch the company for the second time. But AnyRoad, we're a software company that works with brands to deliver really impactful experiences such as tours, classes, online experiences. So our customers include brands like Michael's Stores, who use us to run 20,000 in-store and online classes a year, Budweiser, who use us to power their brewery experiences, and Dick's Sporting Goods, who use us for experiential retail programs. So I'll kind of part with just one comment. I'm actually normally based in San Francisco, but I'm actually in Dublin, Ireland right now. And we're a couple of months, I suppose, behind the US in terms of our reopening plans here. But what I can see is this pent-up demand is present here. So the US is for the large part really back to normal by now. Europe is lagging behind, but I can see once the kind of vaccination rates pick up over here, I see those restrictions being dropped, and I see reopening accelerating at the same pace. I just hope that for a lot of these brands that have seasonal businesses or seasonal engagement, that we can see that reopening happen before the end of the summer, so they can benefit from that lift. So if that's all the questions, just a reminder, experiences@anyroad.com. That's the email address. Shoot an email to me if you have any questions. In any case, thank you so much for your time and attention today. I I hope the reopening is really benefiting your brand. And please stay tuned for more webinars and content from AnyRoad.